Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We are happy you could make time out of your busy day to join our webinar. PPG paints a path to success, a business case for an eQMS. Next slide, please. So before we start, just a few quick housekeeping items. If you have any questions that come up during the webinar, please feel free to put them in the Q&A chat. You'll see the little box at the bottom of your screen. And we will be following up with this webinar with a recording. So you'll be getting that very shortly after the webinar. So I would like to introduce to you our speakers today. I am very excited and pleased to introduce Laura Harshberger. She is the Global IT Director for the Industrial segment at PPG. Welcome, Laura, and thank you very much for joining us today. And I'm Jennifer Bianchini. I am the Senior Product Marketing Manager at ETQ. So, taking a quick look at the agenda today, here's what we'll cover. First, just a brief overview of the value that quality brings to your organization. And then Laura will share with you how PPG created a business case for a quality management system. And then I'll wrap it up with a few tips to get you started. And as I had mentioned before, there's lots of time for Q&A, so don't be shy. Put your questions in the chat because we are here to help you build a business case for an eQMS. So let's begin, shall we? So I'd like to start things off with a quick poll question. And I would really like to get the pulse of what you're hoping to achieve with a quality management system. So is your main area of focus paper? Are you looking to achieve, or sorry, to go paperless, not paper? We want to get away from the paper. Um, are you looking to achieve that anytime, anywhere access with your data? Or perhaps it's having less stress when it comes to audits and being audit ready? Or is it really a priority for your organization to cut down on waste and nonconformances? Or are you really looking to stay on top of those kappas? And if it's all of the above, that's great. And if you're not sure, that's okay as well. So we'll just give it a quick second here and give everyone a chance to respond. Okay, let's see. What's everyone thinking? Oh gosh. Wow. It looks pretty like everyone's on the same wavelength here. It's all of the above. Well, we can definitely understand that. Thank you for indulging me there. I appreciate it. That was very insightful. So let's go ahead and move this along, shall we? Okay. So let's start by taking a look at how quality has an effect across your entire organization. So, taking a look at the CEO, one of the influences of quality for them is helping them to drive consistent business results. So, they're focused on moving the organization forward in the market and ensuring the brand brings value to all of your customers. And they also need to be top of mind and making sure that your products, you're differentiating yourself from the competition in the market. When we take a look at the COO, they need to make sure that operations are running on time and on budget so that they are hitting the delivery targets to customers. And then there is the hidden factory, where can there be room for improvement? And then when we take a look at quality and compliance, this is where quality has an effect across the entire product lifecycle. So they need to demonstrate that they are compliant to all internal and external requirements and are prepared for audits. So their main goals will be more likely aligned to keeping quality and compliance risks low and ensuring that they are delivering, again, high value products to their customers. And when we circle around to the CIO, It's all about ensuring compliance for the digital transformation strategy and making sure systems are secure, keeping those bad actors at bay, and harmonizing systems and processes across all of the teams and the locations. So, taking a look at this, it's a very high level view, but you can see how quality influences everyone within the organization. So, when you are investing in a quality management system that delivers value across the company, you have a system that supports continuous improvement for quality, for customer satisfaction, product safety, and requirements. And those could be internal, your own internal requirements, or from a customer, or the requirements within the market, or government regulations that your organization needs to follow. Okay, next, please. So, how do we get there? You want to start by showing the business value. A quality management system can add to your organization. So it's more than saving money. It's about investing in the top line and the revenues as well as cost. And quality helps to drive revenue by increasing productivity. And it helps to eliminate the labor intensive work that might take place on a daily basis. And if you have happier employees because they're focused on those more value added tasks, they're creating better products. And when you have better products going into the market, you have happier customers, which then helps you to bring products to the market faster. So, how do we make sure we are investing, especially today with the economic headwinds and the things that can get in the way of investing? We start by helping everyone to understand how to put the best case forward for investing in quality and this point in time, especially when an organization has competing needs and they're trying to balance that, and they really need to invest wisely. So we really want to help you put the best case forward for a wise investment. Next slide, please. So, one thing you can start to do is take what we know as quality professionals and translate that into the language of business. This will help you bridge the gap between quality and the business understanding the ROI. So, what do I mean? Well, as quality professionals, we talk about what you see here in the yellow sticky notes: continuous improvement, quality events, Six Sigma, or nonconformances. They're all really focused on quality. But what we don't do is talk in business terms. So, for example, what you see in the pink sticky notes: profits, margin, expenses, or revenue. And that's what the CEOs and the CFOs talk about. But there are also areas that quality crosses over to the business. And that's what you see here in the orange sticky notes. So that's warranty, recalls, scrap, and waste. They have a real impact on the organization. So when we go from talking about the items from quality to the items that talk about the business, because when the warranty recalls and scrap and the waste, they start to drive results when it comes to increasing revenue and reducing expenses, and also increasing margins. So this becomes even more important for public companies where there is an annual report with this information. It's all very visible and valuable. So as quality people, we need to communicate up and down the chain and bring it all together in a singular vocabulary, because we have a real impact on our company's positioning in the market, and not just for the products, but for the financial markets as well. So now I'm excited to turn it over to Laura, and I'm really looking forward to hearing her share how PPG put the best case forward for a business, or best business case forward for a quality management system. Over to you, Laura.
Thanks, Jennifer. I'm going to start by introducing myself. So I'm Laura Harshberger, Global IT Director at PPG. Jennifer mentioned I lead IT for our industrial segment, which I'll go through in the next couple of slides, more about PPG. So that's 4 of our business units, plus our operations team, which includes, manufacturing, quality, engineering, supply chain, etc. So I've been at PPG now almost 15 years. It'll be 15 years in a few months. Within my career of 20 years, I've worked in IT, but I would say in 2 different facets. One kind of in the shared services or center of excellence where, I would go have deep knowledge of a particular technology such as business intelligence and financial systems. And then about halfway through my career, I started working more on the business IT side. So meaning really helping the business teams look at their processes and their strategy, and then applying technology to help move them forward and ultimately achieve their strategy. So you can see some of the writing here. I won't go through it all, but I've seen a lot of different systems in my 20-year career, a lot listed there. So it really goes through the whole value chain from ordering and even from leads and opportunities all the way through shipping and manufacturing. So in addition to those IT specific things and implementing systems, I am a DE&I ambassador at PPG for our IT department. I lead our global internship program, and you can see there, I went to Carnegie Mellon undergrad, got an MBA, and I live in Pittsburgh with my husband and daughter. So now I'll jump into more about PPG. So many of you, I don't know, you may have heard of PPG because we have some well-known paint brands, but actually a lot of our business is coating, I like to say coating everything that moves, cars, planes, ships, and then also coating things that don't move. So like you can see the landmark there, bridges, furniture, office stuff, aluminum cans. So pretty much you probably interact with a product that we coat every day. And so I'll go on the next slide into our business units. So our company is divided into 2 segments, and in total we have 9 businesses. So I'm going to start on the right side since that's where my expertise and my team, where we live in the industrial coating segment. So we support our automotive OEM coatings. So that is when the cars are being produced. We manage a lot of the paint shops in our customer facilities and apply several different layers of coating to cars that you drive. I think I may not get the statistic perfectly right, but something like we coat at least 1 layer on 80% of the world's cars. Industrial is kind of a hodgepodge of products. It includes things like appliances, tractors, Yeti cups. So I think everyone uses, or a lot of people use Yeti cups. Those actually have our powder coatings, which is a more sustainable material. Packaging coatings with the aluminum cans, and then specialty coatings, which is really interesting. Like you see the screen there, we make some of the materials that go into an OLED screen. So you may have heard of OLED on your TV or on your smartphone and also in your car. On the left side is what we call our performance coating segment. So that's aerospace. We do a lot with aircraft, protective and marine. So that's the ships and things like oil rigs and other large utility structures. Automotive refinishes, you know, you see the OEM, I talked about the OEM on the right side, refinishes, like if you got into an accident and you need to fix your car and you take it to a body shop, they'll use our software to match the color and do the repairs on your car. Traffic solutions is, all the road paint. So that's a really interesting one. And finally, architectural, which is our house paint. So that's kind of what most consumers are familiar with. So almost 2 years ago, or maybe a little bit over 2 years ago now, we started our journey on implementing ETQ, Quality Management System. So I wanted to talk about our journey and how we developed our business case and then some lessons learned. So at this point in time, we've been going for about a year and a half from a project implementation standpoint. We're about a year and a half in. We have about a year still left, maybe a little bit over. So we're a little over halfway through our journey of implementing 13 modules of ETQ. So we split that into really 3 different phases. Part of the reason being we needed to understand better the ROI, and splitting it into different phases helped us request some capital funding for the implementation and make sure we can show the value. So I am happy to say, like I mentioned, we have deployed and we're in the midst of deploying about 7 modules at over 100 facilities. So that is done, and then we'll continue with the 6 other modules to make out the full 13. So, where do you start when you kind of think of quality management? As Jennifer mentioned, as many of you probably know, is a lot of different areas in quality assurance, compliance. It touches not only quality professionals, but operations and EH&S, or environment, health, and safety, and lots of other teams, procurement because of the supplier management. So it is a lot to get your arms around initially. So we split it up, and the first thing we did was try to gather all of our business requirements. So that was talking to our first phase, we actually included aerospace in addition to the 4 industrial businesses. So we had 5 business units, but we also wanted to look ahead and make sure we collected requirements from some of the future business units as well. So before we even went to look for a quality tool in the market, we looked at our business requirements, we looked at all the systems that we have, and my latest count is we probably have about 15 disparate quality systems. That doesn't include Excel spreadsheets, PowerPoint presentations, Access databases. So I'm sure that there's more and more out there. But 15 that we knew about and that we managed from an IT perspective. So we looked at the requirements for those systems. We looked at we worked with our business units to align future state processes. So, and I say they're starting with regulated industries. So we focused heavily on our automotive OEM business and our aerospace business because they have more stringent quality requirements such as IATF, ISO, different for aerospace, there's some different regulations, and also newer for auto is things like TSACs, for those of you that are familiar or work with in the automotive industry. So we thought, okay, if we can make sure that the system works for automotive and for aerospace, that the others should be able to follow and follow suit. So that's how we did it, because there's a ton of, we had as you can imagine, huge spreadsheets with many tabs as we were collecting all the requirements and then trying to get to the common process. So our second part was picking the software. So we work in partnership with Gartner. So they helped us to initially choose potential vendors. We developed a pretty robust request for proposal. So that included a lot of the requirements that I mentioned. So those big spreadsheets with all the tabs and all the user requirements we gave to the potential vendors. And then we asked them to make sure they put their capabilities in each requirement, whether it was, satisfied in an out of the box way. So with their software and with, a small amount of configuration changes, or whether it required major customization to the software. So that's how we did the scoring process. So the higher score was certainly more out of the box capability and less customizations. So we rated the vendors and the scores across the board, and ultimately we ended up picking ETQ. Then, so we gathered, as we're gathering costs, the other side of it, right, is that we had to figure out how we were going to measure the value. So I worked very closely. I'm not a quality professional, so I'm in IT and I know a lot about the quality processes, but I worked really closely with a quality director and several subject matter experts to understand, what value an integrated QMS would bring to PPG. So Jennifer talked about some of the value, paperless, better traceability from customer complaints down to supplier, being able to determine if it's a supplier issue, a raw material issue, and then actually have all the evidence to go back to a supplier. Reducing waste, reducing scrap. She talked about all those things. So I mentioned earlier, we phased this kind of in 3 different phases, and we had, sort of separate projects for it, even though now several of them are running in parallel and we're all working together as one large program team. We started with, I'll call it the foundational modules first of ETQ. So if you know a little bit about ETQ, and I'm sure you can get information from Jennifer or even Google it, there's probably 25 or 30 different modules. There's some foundational ones like document control, corrective action, audits, FMEA, and training management. So those were the ones that we started with to build the foundation. So a lot of the modules interconnect, and especially some of the modules like document control are very integral to everything else. Okay, so we started there. It was a little bit more difficult to measure the ROI for that first phase because we're building a foundation to then add on top of it some more, I'll say, value added modules. So for the first 5, where we really found the value was being able to eliminate some of our legacy applications. So I mentioned, we have at least 15 that we're aware of and that we manage the budgets for. So we knew we'd be able to get rid of a certain number of those applications. We measured that. We also, if I remember correctly, from the quality side, we spend, a certain amount of money on external auditing each year. And with the audit module, we realized we could decrease that cost a bit on the external auditors. Okay, so those were really the two drivers for the foundational module implementation. Then we brought the second phase about 8 months later, I believe. We brought the second phase forward for funding approval. So we had implemented 5 modules, we were still rolling them out, and then we brought 8 more forward. And that was things like quality events, non-conformance, customer feedback, supplier rating, supplier materials and chemicals, change management, to name a few. And that's where we really thought we would get the value. So specifically in some of our bigger and more regulated businesses, we get potentially claims in from customers, and then we can match those to a supplier issue and potentially recover some money from our suppliers. So that process today is very manual, and we can't always show the traceability and the root cause analysis and everything that happens through that process. So that's where we focused for our ROI on the second phase. And then the third phase was brought forward probably maybe 4 months after the second phase, and it is focused on training management. So we looked at our EHS, or Environment, Health, and Safety audits and audit findings, and how many of them are related to training issues. And so we were able to quantify in that way and bring that forward for approval. So I've talked about the implementation as we've been going, but we have many waves that we're going through. So again, approximately 110 manufacturing plants in these phases and waves right now. We are still working towards even getting the first 5 modules to all of those sites. We're very close to being done. And then we're taking a bit of a different implementation approach for phase 2 and phase 3, which is looking more regionally. So saying, okay, all the sites in a particular region, or even all the sites globally will launch. And it really depends on if we have to migrate data, like for document control, there's a lot of pre-work, and you need to migrate documents, and we have documents in many different places. So it just takes a little bit longer. For a module like CAPA, where it's corrective action, we didn't have any data to migrate. So we're starting, maybe we're going from spreadsheets or something to starting in the integrated system. So we were able to launch that read for all sites in a particular region at once. And now we're really monitoring some of the user adoption and starting to measure the value that we promised on our funding. The word's escaping me. So on our funding request, that's it. So I'm happy to report, we were able to turn off some of our legacy systems recently, and we're on our way to meeting the value that we promised for the phase 1 modules. So in terms of lessons learned, we've gone through a lot of different things in the last 18 months, and I'm sure we have a lot of continuous improvement happening even for the next 12 to 14 months. And the team has been doing an outstanding job and making sure that we're taking learnings as we go. But so the first lesson learned I have is focus on the processes to implement versus the modules. So what do I mean? In phase 1, where we had the foundational modules, it was hard to get the sites to adopt when they might be still doing part of their process in another system or in Excel, and then they're doing part of their process in ETQ. So we had a quality director that started with us, part of the way through our journey. And so when she came in, she really helped us with this point. So she said, okay, for phase 2, instead of going module by module, let's look at the process. So if we want everyone to raise their internal nonconformances, let's say, in ETQ, then we need to deploy Kappa, which we had been deploying already, nonconformance reporting, and quality events. So we deployed all three of those at the same time, which helped with adoption. So now we can say to sites, okay, if you have any internal nonconformance, the only place you should raise it is in ETQ. And then you can do your root cause analysis and problem solving, and everything's there in one place. Next, and in about a few weeks, just to finish that thought, in a few weeks, we're launching customer feedback. So then we'll get the external complaints or nonconformances and the internal nonconformance processes in ETQ. So if we go to the next one is doing more than 2 modules at once is a lot. So we did 5 in our first phase, and the team, I will give them a lot of credit because they got through and we delivered on time, on budget, but it was a tremendous amount of work. So we decided after phase 1, as we were doing a sort of a post-mortem review of the project, that we would not implement more than 2 modules at one time in the subsequent phases. Process owners and change champions are key. So I would say because of our structure and 9 businesses, it's really difficult to we don't have the idea of process owners in some of our business units. We do, or the industrial businesses do share some of our plants, and so therefore they work together a little bit more. But we don't have full-time process owners, so we had to kind of ask people, quality managers, people at our sites, if they would be willing to be a process owner or a module owner, and kind of as part of their, or in addition to their normal job. Obviously, it's great if you have process owners already defined and they have full-time roles. That wasn't really the way that we're structured or how that was going to work. So we did it a different way, and we have kind of the process owners and module owners as that do kind of their day job plus help us implement this system. And it's been a good and bad lesson, or good and bad things have come out of that, right? Because those are the subject matter experts, people that are quality managers at our sites. They know the processes, they understand ISO, IATF, all of the regulations, and so they have the most amount of knowledge, but also they have a lot going on in their day job, and so we were trying to balance doing the implementation and getting their time. We just developed a change champion network, so I'd say we're a little bit late to doing that, and I think that will really help also with the burden on the process owners or module owners. So think about that when you start your implementation. We need to do better at this too, and hopefully you can all help learn from us. Market your wins, understand your success criteria for the entire project, or in our case, the kind of the 4 projects, the program, and then how to measure value. So it's not just the value that we promised as part of our capital funding request. So we're measuring those dollars and cents, but it's also the soft value, like having all your data in one place, and if you get questions, it's so much easier to go into one system and find the answer, and it's quicker than trying to wade through lots of Excel sheets or 15 different systems to connect everything. So time savings, efficiency, those are all hard things to quantify when we're putting together a business case, but just make sure you figure out how you're going to quantify that. We don't have good baselines, so some of it's just word of mouth, hearing from people, are you saving time? How much time are you saving? And then we extrapolate that out, with our 100 sites. So in IT, we're not great at marketing, so we have to do better at sharing the quick wins. So another lesson, right, and we've kind of been doing this throughout our journey, is build a product owner team in addition to an IT support team. So I manage both of these teams at this point in time. So the product owner team is really people from the business that do come over full time, and they manage ETQ like from a sort of an administrative perspective, but also doing ongoing training, answering user questions, working with IT and ETQ in this case throughout the implementation to prioritize features or functionality that we want. That's really the role of the product owner. Right now we have a pretty small team, and we're working to figure out how to build that out in a cost-effective way, and also support 110 locations globally. From an IT perspective, we also built out a team. We have in PPG, we have technology centers in different regions, and so as we were going, we have at least one person in each of those technology centers that is involved in our project and will support from an IT standpoint moving forward. And finally, I talked a bit about monitoring. We are trying to monitor usage metrics, so to quantify our adoption and talk to our leaders, whether it's our manufacturing directors, our quality director, our senior vice president of operations, how, are people using the tool? Is it being adopted well, or what do we need to do to improve? So we look at like logins, which is kind of basic, but we also worked with ETQ and we've developed some metrics like showing, let's say, how many corrective actions have been created in a particular amount of time at each site, or how many documents are in each site, or how many documents are being accessed. There's things you can do, and then we report that out to our leadership about once a month in our steering committee meetings. It is ideal to have a baseline. I talked about that with some of the other metrics, but we don't have a baseline since we didn't have an integrated quality management system before. So we're doing our best and establishing some new baselines, and then we'll be able to measure our success moving forward. And I'll pass it back to you, Jennifer.
All right. Thank you, Laura. I really appreciate you sharing that. Very forward thinking to gather the requirements from future users. So that was great. And I think you shared some really great nuggets of information in your lessons learned. Everyone got some great tips there. So very, very informative. Thanks, Laura.
Thank
All
you.
right. You're welcome. Okay. So earlier I had mentioned as quality people, we need to communicate up and down the chain to bring it all together in a singular vocabulary. So, here are some tips to help you get that conversation going with those in your organization who will approve the funding for your purchase or expand your quality management system. And this is where you'll need to position the conversation by using language in their area of focus. So there's a few examples listed here. So looking at the first one, if your primary focus is looking at reducing the cost of poor quality, such as scrap and rework, or getting those customer complaints down, when you're having those discussions with the folks who are going to be approving the funding, consider language that supports the quality and the profitability of the products, which is more relatable to them. If you're more concerned about streamlining operations, think about language such as tackling those manual processes for those activities that can take a long time and how it can undermine the decision making process. As we all know, with manual activities, it leaves the room open for errors. So, if you can work on addressing that with the lack of consistent documentation and how it's difficult to make decisions. Another example we have listed here is reducing the risk of noncompliance. So, while you might be really focused on being audit ready and decreasing those audit findings, think about language around how your organization needs to maintain compliance. It's come up several times already. You have to be compliant to customer requirements, internal requirements, and any regulatory requirements that are out there. And then our final example is driving and protecting revenue. So think about speaking to goals that are oriented to delivering products on time and on budget, or increasing the speed of innovation and new products. So getting new products out into the market to help bring in more revenue for the organization. And so this is where you would want to bring it in when you need to address non-conformances or product failures. Another way you can look at adding a quality management, or another way. Let's look at it this way. Another tool you can add to your quality management business case tool belt is an ROI calculator. So at ETQ, we developed an ROI model, and it was built on input from dozens of customers who use ETQ Reliance on a daily basis. And we took a look at where they saw the value. And based on their feedback, they identified four key areas where a QMS system adds value, in addition to about 14 metrics. So the key areas are around productivity improvements, such as cost savings and revenue growth. So the first is reducing the risk of noncompliance. An example of this is saving time on audits, which we have mentioned, and helping to reduce those audit findings. So we were able to measure, for example, the amount of time that customers saw in the reduction of a 20% reduction in the time spent on preparing and planning for audits with ETQ Reliance. And then taking a look at streamlining operations, such as were you able to react more effectively to complaints, or the processes that you have in place when a supplier delivery arrives and you need to do inspections. So they reported an improvement in the number of hours and people that are involved in that process. They saw a 15% reduction in the time spent managing supplier deliveries. So these first two items I mentioned, they're looking at time and the level of effort in addressing each area. And so these are soft costs. And this is a little bit what Laura was touching on in her lessons learned, how it's difficult to quantify that. But the next two items are a little bit easier. They're tangible. So those are what we refer to as hard costs. And that's improving scrap, fewer recalls, and reducing those inventory carrying costs. And this is where you can really start to see a significant amount of savings. So, for example, the 10% reduction in field failure costs, this can really turn into hundreds and thousands of dollars for many organizations. And then when we take a look at growing and protecting revenue, this is through improved customer satisfaction. So having customers buy more of your product or word of mouth, having it out there on social media, allowing that message to be taken to a broader audience. And you're also looking at reducing the amount of time where you're bringing your product to market, where, again, I had touched on this previously, you are bringing in new revenue opportunity for your organization. So all of these areas you see an improvement from the top line and the bottom line. And this is what someone who is an approver for your eQMS investment, this is what they really like to hear about. And these are, as I had mentioned before, these are actual results that our customers have received with our quality management system. So, what can you do to start the process today? Just one more slide, please. Back one more. There you go. Thank you. Um, So to get started, as Laura had mentioned when they started, they had to gather the data, gather the requirements that you need to build that business case, utilize the departments in your organization who have the information to help you, develop relationships and work with the stakeholders on the finance team, the IT team, or ask the auditors. Learn their business terms and their processes for tracking the financial health of the organization. Learn what metrics they are reporting up to senior leadership. And when you understand that, you can script these metrics into your business case and really help to influence the bottom line. So, how do you get started? Well, we at ETQ can also help you. Can have an ETQ representative provide you with the guidance that you might need to build your business case in the language that your business leader will understand. And they will help you put that picture together, highlighted in dollars and cents. The payback your organization will receive with ETQ Reliance. Okay, so we have now reached the part of our webinar where we are at the Q&A. So let's take a look and see what questions have come in the chat. Are you ready, Laura?
I'm ready.
Okay. Well, Orlando says greetings from Brazil. Hello, Orlando. Okay. So this is from Ernesto Zapata. Hopefully I said that right. Apologies if I didn't. Hi, Laura. I was with PPG for 33 years. We met in Syamar.
Silmar. Yep.
Okay, sorry. um, they have so Ernesto has two questions. Is PPG going to work with AI to implement QMS and improvements faster? And is PPG looking into space programs to provide materials, or is that already taking place?
Thanks. Hi, Ernesto. I do remember meeting you back in Silmar a few years ago. For your first question, so we're using some parts of AI. So as an example, we used ChatGPT to help us with language translation. So we had to translate, like ETQ comes in certain languages out of the box. We needed additional languages, so we got a field list and then helped use ChatGPT to do the translation. So that sped up a lot versus having to go to each country and pick somebody that could help us with those translations. For the second one, I guess, if are we looking into space programs? Do you mean like NASA, outer space? I guess I'm not sure that I understand that question, but we do have some in aerospace. We already work with some of those customers, like gosh, the name is escaping me right now. SpaceX, I believe, but I don't know if I'm answering your question. So
No worries. Well, he knows you. Maybe he can reach out and find you on LinkedIn.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So here's a question from Craig. Is it easy to have ETQ communicated with SAP or Oracle? Yes, absolutely. ETQ Alliance has open APIs, and we can connect with any business system. So you have that harmonized integration throughout with all of your systems. Okay, let's see. Um, let's see. Laura, what did you find was an effective strategy to show the value creation map of a phased approach over time across your sites? Let's start with that one first.
It's a good question. Trying to think how I want to answer that. So if you're kind of familiar with funding strategies, whether you use capital or OpEx, right? We did have to know ahead of time to create the business case. We had to assume a certain amount of value. We did work with ETQ, and Jennifer mentioned some of the ROI, right? So we used that as a starting point, and then we had to refine it based on our business needs and what made sense, like how much like we actually get financially impacted by some of those levers, versus the soft savings like we talked about. So I think, I don't know, we didn't particularly use a value creation map as a tool, but really it was about, for me, it was really about educating our stakeholders in terms of like what an integrated QMS could give us. Because I think that was the hardest part, right? Is it's hard to picture something that you don't have, and it's hard to picture the future when maybe you're working in 15 systems or in all these Excel sheets today, right? So I think it was really trying to match up current and future, but give them enough visibility into what that looks like. And so that was maybe going through, like I mentioned, some of the going through processes instead of the modules. That was a key. Like really make sure you're talking in the business process terms instead of the ETQ modules. I think that was a good lesson learned for us, which we did more in our second phase instead of our first phase.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. Here's a question. What approach would you recommend if the organization doesn't already have a QMS?
Yeah, so for us, it was beneficial that we had some people that had come into PPG from the outside that had used ETQ at a prior in a prior company. So it was about, also we did some customer references with getting customers from ETQ that we could talk to and really like connect our stakeholders with some of their stakeholders at the same level. I recommend that because sometimes they don't always, I'll say, always want to believe everything that comes from only IT. So it was nice to have some other references where they could talk to somebody at the same position at a different company that has used ETQ and really, vouches for the
Mhm.
savings and everything that they got benefit from. So that was definitely a good way to do it.
Okay, great. I think I can take this next question. On slide 14, there were a few examples of percentage reductions to create an ROI business case. Does ETQ help to establish a baseline and quantify the metrics? Yes, we do help you. As part of the ROI calculator that we created with the help of our customers, we have a baseline to work off of. So if you don't know, like one of the answers we would need to help build out your ROI, we have that baseline that we can work off of. And we do help you to quantify that. So absolutely, we will work with you on that. Let's see. So this question's from Jeff, and it's for you, Laura. You had mentioned an EDQ audit module helped to reduce the cost of external audit costs. Can you detail this a little bit more?
I think a little bit was with what Jennifer mentioned, like in her slide after, which was spending less time with external auditors. So meaning less hours that we had to pay from an external audit standpoint. Unfortunately, I don't have other good examples right now. That was really, I would need our quality director. So Jeff, if you want to, reach out to me like via LinkedIn or something, I can try to get that information for you.
Great. Thanks, Laura. I think this is an interesting question. So sometimes you plan on what your spend would be to get it into the annual budget, but things come up. Do you have any suggestions on how someone could get approval for their spend after a budget has been approved?
That's a tough one. So it all depends on, I guess, the culture and how much and kind of what your CapEx looks like. From our perspective, I will say we had no idea what to include as a budgetary number really early in our journey. So we put a number in, and it was not it was not aligned. I can't even remember whether it was over or under at this point, but the point is we had a budget in there, so that was helpful. And then once we started our phase one, and I mentioned the phased approach, phase 2 and 3, then each year I was able to even put a guesstimate in for the subsequent phases. If you don't have a budget, no, so the way we do it, I guess it depends on your kind of portfolio, whoever's asking the question. There are times if we have a project that comes up that we sort of swap it out with something else that was budgeted that could be pushed into a subsequent year. So, I guess you'd have to kind of look more holistically. If you're only managing ETQ maybe and not a full portfolio of projects, then you would need to talk to someone who's managing a portfolio of capital and see if you can kind of swap things out. That's how we handle it, because we know changes come up and surprises come up throughout the year. So it's not realistic to think we're always going to stick to the budget that was provided or the budget that was estimated in,
Of
July of the year before. So
course, it's not set in stone.
yeah.
Um, I think we can fit in two more questions. And this one actually has come up a couple times. So, what are your recommendations for getting buy-in from leadership to get approval for the spend for a quality management system?
I'll say, like, I was fortunate, and it's an unfortunate situation, but we've had some quality issues. We had some quality issues with products and just in general a couple of years ago when we started this journey. And so I'll say it wasn't a super hard sell because our leaders knew that we needed to do something to change our culture and make it a more quality focused culture. So for the foundational modules, which were probably the hardest to quantify, I we put a lot of work into it, no doubt, but I didn't get as many questions from our senior leaders, I guess, as I was expecting,
Mhm.
because they all realized that, hey, we need to do something different. We need to um, improve our culture from a quality standpoint, and also, of course, they could foresee the benefits of having one integrated system, like looking at issues across sites that are similar, looking at best practices across sites. All of those things are not easy to do right now, or not even possible in some cases. So just those simple examples was enough to sell them on that first phase. So
Okay, well, thanks for sharing that. And we're at time, but I'm dying to ask you this question before we wrap things up. What is your favorite PPG color?
yeah, so I painted my house last year. I love the color. It's called Rocky Road. It's kind of like it's a little bit darker, like of a beige, but it's more of a fun, I'd say, fun color that you could have throughout your whole house. And then I did some accent walls in called Blue Beats. So it's a nice deep blue, um, and it goes nicely with the Rocky Road. So hopefully you can look up those colors and that helps. We also
I
do a color of the year. I think it was purple basil this year. So that's a
Oh,
pretty
nice. It sounds
color.
very
Yeah.
interesting. Well, thank you so much, Laura, for sharing your experience at PPG with us. Lots of great information there for everyone. Everyone else, thank you so much for joining us. You will receive a recording of this webinar and a follow up email. And again, reach out. If you need to get a business case together, reach out to ETQ. We are happy to help you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.